I know that time is your most valuable asset, and I want to help you maximize it as you're preparing for your next race. I'm now offering training systems in the distances of 5K, 10K, 10 mile, half marathon, and full marathon. Go to runwithsusie.com and check it out. This passion project is supported in a few different ways. First of all, through my efforts as a Zaya Active independent representative. If you want to get a text message from me each week with my new release pick of the week, as well as a health tip, just go to newreleasewednesday.com and I will add you to my list. Second, through partnerships with Red H Nutrition and Hello Woofy. Hello Woofy is a new partner to the Run Lift Mom podcast, and you guys, this is what keeps me going in my social media efforts. It's a total time saver, and it helps me work smart on social media when I'm promoting Zaya Active or the Run Lift Mom podcast. If you'll go to runliftmompod.com/woofy, that's WOOFY, you'll learn more about Hello Woofy. runliftmompod.com/woofy. Welcome to the Run Lift Mom podcast, where we're talking about running, lifting, and momming, not necessarily in that order and not necessarily with us as the mom. Rather, we're going to talk about our moms, dads, and grandparents. Today's guest, Isabel Tom, grew up living with her grandparents and has spent over a decade in her career serving older adults in senior living as well as hospice care settings. I met Isabel about a decade ago in graduate school, and you guys, she is a walking success story. She's the author of a book called The Value of Wrinkles, and today she's going to talk with us about cultural beliefs on aging, as well as give us some practical, tactical insight on how to care for those aging loved ones in our lives. She gets timely. We talk about COVID-19 and the current health pandemic and some of the challenges that you might have connecting with the elderly in your life. Isabel brought it. This is the episode I personally didn't know I needed, and I hope it'll be the same for you. Without further ado, my friend, the author of The Value of Wrinkles, Isabel Tom. All right, welcome Isabel Tom, author of The Value of Wrinkles, to the Run Lift Mom podcast. It's been about a decade since we were sitting in our master's classes together. Girl, what have you been up to? Introduce my listeners
goodness.
to you.
All right, Susie, it is great to be here. So my name is Isabel. I say Isabel Tom is my author name because a lot of people call me Belle, but I'm a mom of 3 young kids. I'm a wife. I consider myself an athlete. I love running, fitness, everything like that. But I guess what makes me kind of strange and interesting is that I also have this huge passion for the older adult generation. And I would say add to that I love sweets. I love thrift shopping and secondhand stuff. So I could go on, but that's just the gist of who I am.
I think people just fell in love with you because you're like, oh, I like running, fitness, I've got a lot of kids, and I like good bargains.
Yes.
Love.
That's me.
Let's dig in a little bit to, though, that love for the older population. Talk to me about that.
All right. So I guess if you met me earlier in my life, I would say my life was pretty plain. So I grew up living with my grandparents. I lived with them until I was 26. Which again is not something I really wanted to do as a 20-something-year-old. I wanted to be hanging out with my friends, not living with, people in their 90s. But anyways, I always had a close relationship with them. And then when I graduated from college, I started my first job in the senior care field. And so I started in that field mainly because I just needed a job. It really wasn't because I had a huge passion for older adults. But I started to realize how useful this information was, what I was learning. And I became more passionate about it because my grandparents were aging too. So they were in their 90s. And so everything that I was learning I was applying. And so I was paying, even more attention than everybody else. I would say I was always taking notes. And so I've worked in every level of care, from independent living. I did senior fitness, like chair aerobics, all of that fun stuff. I worked in assisted living and skilled nursing. I did marketing and outreach. And then near the end of, I would say in the last decade, I've worked in hospice care. And I provided, I developed curriculum and helped to educate professionals and community members about end of life issues. So, so that's kind of how it started. And I don't know if you want me to talk even more about what happened after that, but.
Yeah, you know what? I do. So at the time of this recording, I will let people know we're smack dab. I don't even know if it's the middle or the beginning of a health pandemic. So the coronavirus, COVID-19, we are both social distancing right now and in quarantine. Our schools are out for at least another month. And so this episode, first part, I do want to explore what you're doing now, because I think it's awesome and a way for listeners to go deeper with you. But I also want listeners to hear that we are going to address what is going on in the present for sure. So first, tell me how one goes from working in assisted living and end-of-life care and hospice to being a published author. The Value of Wrinkles released last month, like March 2020.
So it's really kind of crazy. So I've always been that person who, with my peers, I'll go to a party and they'll say, "What type of work do you do?" And I'll say, "I work with older people." And then I get these stares or strange looks like, "Oh, isn't that so depressing?" And so I've gotten those looks throughout like my entire career. And so I started a blog after a few years of getting that a lot. And I've been blogging. I probably blogged for about a decade about that. And I wouldn't say I had a lot of followers, but I feel like God uses our passions and he uses our gifts in interesting ways. And so what happened is when my grandma passed away, she was 102. That was about 2 years ago. She had a beautiful ending. Like, we just loved her so well. We spoiled her to the end, our whole entire family, friends, church, everything. We took great care of her. And when she passed, I was like, wow, this is the way it's supposed to be. At the same time, I thought, well, all this work I've been doing in senior care, it must be over now, because I've helped all my grandparents. I've helped both of my grandparents that I live with. I helped my dad as he was declining when he had cancer. And I thought that my job, my profession, its purpose was to help my family. But God really convicted me, and I started thinking, what about the other older adults in the world? Like, who's going to be a voice for them? Who's going to care for them? And so even though I was thinking I was going to blog more, I ended up I was learning about writing, and I had joined this writers group, and I learned how to put together a book proposal. And I was like, I have enough content for a book. So it was really quite a step of faith, but I went to a writers conference, my very first writers conference, pitched to 2 publishers. And actually those publishers didn't end up accepting they weren't interested in the end. But I ended up meeting the publisher for the book that I just published. I met the acquisitions editor in the elevator, and literally, I've only seen her in person for less than 5 minutes, but that was the beginning of a conversation that led to a book contract.
You literally gave an elevator pitch. I mean, we always talk about having an elevator pitch.
It wasn't even a good one, but I think I showed the passion, and because I had been blogging for years, they knew this is not somebody who was trying to just get a book contract. Like, I was serious about this. And I'm the type of person who people have given me enough funny looks that when you are willing to listen to me, I will totally talk your ear off about how much I care about older adults. And so this lady, she had that same passion. And so she was willing to champion my book, take it to the publisher, present it. And I was really blessed. They said it was unanimously voted to publish my book. And I'll tell you, I only had 26 blog followers. So that's a God thing.
Yes. Wow, God's providence is amazing. And I'll let people know again, the name of the book is called The Value of Wrinkles. And so what it does is it really walks folks, of course, through, you've got a ton of experience, but it walks people through very applicable ways to intentionally love the aging population, be it family members or neighbors or whomever in their community.
Yeah. And I would say one of the reasons I was so convicted to write this, and I wrote this in my book proposal, is because there aren't any books out there that are written by somebody young. And naturally, that's because we don't know what old age is like. But because I grew up living with my grandparents, I wrote in my book proposal that I had over 30, I have over 35 years of experience being around older adults, but I'm a young adult. And so I'm able to write a book that is relevant to a younger audience. So nobody wants to hear from their middle-aged mom about like how to care for an older person. They want to hear it from a peer. And so I feel like this was a really rare opportunity where I was able to do that. So I had a really unique perspective.
Definitely. So let's talk about that for a second. So, folks that are in, like, let's say, like their late 20s to early 40s, because I think that represents a lot of the listenership. And listeners, we're not throwing stones at you or anything, but I mean, Isabel, what would you say, like the commonly held beliefs about aging population are among folks our age? I'm including myself in that.
Well, I would say it's among people of all ages in many ways, but I would say that the older that we get, we believe that we become useless, we're less capable, we're less attractive, we're just not able to contribute. And so you see that, like, if you just listen to the way people talk about their next birthday or how they joke around, they'll say, I'm getting old. And they'll be like in their 20s or 30s, right? Or I have worked with a lot of older adults who their advice to me is like, don't get old. Or they'll say, you don't want to hang out with an old guy like me. And so you can kind of see that even among older adults, there's kind of like this shame to getting older, that it's not good. Being old is not good. Like if somebody said you looked older than your age, like, oh my goodness, you would just totally get it. So yeah, it's just the way our culture views old age and aging is just it's not a good thing to them.
Right. Well, and I bet a lot of people are listening and they're shaking their head and they're like, yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of only celebrating age up birthdays. For runners out there, that's when you enter a next age group, and they're typically in 5-year increments. But to your point, it's like, why aren't we celebrating every year? You can celebrate more than every 5 years related to your hobby. What, may I ask, like, so your personal belief, let's wipe out what our culture says about aging. How do you think we should view aging? And of course your book, speaks to this, but I'd love to hear kind of your personal mantra on that.
Well, so I would say I deal with it too, where I have to catch myself the way that society views aging. But I would say in working with older adults, in serving my grandparents and just living alongside them, I've just come to see a more realistic picture of aging and what it's like. I think it's very obvious. We all know that aging is hard, and that's why none of us want to age. But I think we forget to see the other side of the good things that do happen. As we get older, I call it, we always talk about gratitude, but I think we should think about gratitude and growth and what happens as we get older. With every year, with every day, like I learn new things about myself. I learn new ways to do things. Like I just learned how to make bacon. That sounds like I'm not a very good cook, whatever. And I'm not, but I just learned how to make bacon in the oven well this year. And that is like something to celebrate. And I'm like in my mid to late 30s. And so I think every single year, there are exciting things that happen. We get better. I really do believe we get better. But we're often looking at the outside and productivity and performance, but inside there are so many things that get better as we get older.
Right. I love that. So I alluded to earlier that we are recording this. It is late March 2020, and the world is in a really funny place. A place, in fact, that if we have older loved ones in our lives, we might be separated from them in a very real way. Like if they're in an assisted living or something like that, we probably haven't seen these folks outside of the home. So can you just give me some thoughts on, in this time of social or physical distancing, how we can show love to older adults that might not be Zooming or Skyping in their day-to-day?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not just about now. This is something that we can apply to all the time, but I think people are they're more tuned to it now. I would just say first, like there are two sets of older people, and I would say one is the active older adult, who I would say in some ways they're struggling more right now because they have a routine where, maybe they go to the gym every day, maybe go have coffee with friends. They're retired, but they had a busy schedule still. And so right now, all of their activities are put on hold. They're not essential. So nobody's trying to, keep them going, if that makes sense. Like school is trying to get kids to learn online, but not for these activities. So I think for them, it's hard, in some ways harder. And then you have the older or older adults who they may be in more, their health may not be as good. Maybe they live in a facility. And so for them, I would say this is actually kind of their normal, where they are distanced from the rest of, society. And so this is a time where I think we've slowed down enough to reach out to them. I think in terms of tips and how we can love older adults during this time, especially those who are not, tech savvy, it's so simple. Just use the phone. And I think, use the phone, send them cards. You know how effective it is if you just call your grandma every single day. It's a very simple thing. You could talk to her for 2 minutes and she would just be, I would say after 2 or 3 times, she'd be like, what in the world are you doing? Why are you calling me so much? But I think, if you keep on doing it, you're sending a very powerful message to say, I care about you. It's not even what you're talking about. And I would say if you're looking for things to talk about, then everything from asking them what they think about the coronavirus, because they've been through a whole lot more than the coronavirus. They may have gone through the depression, they may have gone through war, poverty, everything like that. And I'm sure they could have some wisdom to share with you. And then I would also say, use this as a time to find out about your family history and really ask them questions, because what I see, especially in working in hospice care, is there are a lot of especially adult children, when their grandparents or parents pass, they regret not having asked certain questions. Like, I wish I asked mom where, what her first job was or how mom and dad met, those types of things. Like, this is a time you can do that, record it, and it will be something that I believe you'll treasure forever. So
I love
those
it.
are just some tips.
Yeah, and it occurs to me, I love that you highlighted there, like, hey, this is, the timing on this question is interesting because we are thinking about it. We are the ones that have slowed down enough to do this. But guys, if these folks are the priority that you say they are, you can do this when you get busy again too. So maybe this is an evergreen episode. We should, and just use the phone. We don't have to teach them to use technology. Y'all write them a letter or pick up the phone.
Yeah. And this is evergreen because, we all need meaningful interaction, but I feel like with the older adults in our lives, like they aren't able to get out as often. And also I would say nothing beats family. I think they might appreciate new friends that they meet, but I don't think they're always trying to make a whole ton of new friends. I think they want to connect with their loved ones. And so having a family member, especially like grandchildren, I say they have a superpower. If you can prompt and guide your kids to just call, that's what I've been doing. I teach my kids to dial a phone, call grandma, and I say, you call, tell her who you are, and then say, what have you been doing today? Or tell her something you've been doing. So teaching them how to have a conversation. And then even though my mom and mother-in-law know that I've prompted them to do this, they're like tickled. Like they love getting these calls because I say grandchildren have like a superpower. I say it in my book, but they bless without baggage. And so there's just this really special relationship there that I think we should utilize as parents.
Yes, I want people to hear this because, look, a lot of people are listening to this show. They may not be moms or maybe not moms yet, but the majority of people that listen to this show, it's fitness-minded moms. There are grandchildren. And so you guys hear they bless without baggage. We know that artwork, we know that a phone call, I love that example of your kids making that call, saying their name, asking how they're doing. We can do this. We can absolutely do it.
It's a new way to connect too, that maybe you've brought your kids to go visit grandparents in person.
Mhm.
But because we are distanced physically, this is a new way that we can relate to them. And it kind of has this interesting, it creates this different dynamic that I feel like makes that relationship richer.
Right. I want to get your advice before we do some wrap up here. You mentioned that for the healthy, for the healthy older adult, right? The active older adult, nothing strange is going on cognitively. This is harder for them because their social life revolved around getting out of the house, maybe going to that silver sneakers class or getting coffee with their friends, maybe going to a bookstore, something like that. Now that's been taken away. Are you recommending for these folks as well, like give them a call, talk, ask about their memories, what's going on?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, here's the thing, a statistic for you, I guess. The average age when people die in America is about 77 to 78. So I think if somebody is considered an older adult, maybe they don't want to be called old, or maybe they're very active. We just can't be surprised when, if they're not going to be, we can't be surprised if they're not here with us in a year, in 5 years. And with this whole thing going on, I mean, we can't be surprised if something happens tomorrow. It just, that I think that's why people are scared in many ways, because the coronavirus is not just impacting older adults, it's impacting some younger people too. So I think we really need to remember that each day that we have is a gift, and use the time that we have. I really believe that this time where we're slowing down is a gift to us to do some really important things. Like people keep saying, on social media, you'll see people say, I'm spending time with family. Like, finally, this actually is nice. Well, I think this is also a time where we can reach out to our family members and, elderly neighbors and friends. I think it's a time where we can really reach out and just show each other that we care. And when the time comes when your loved one passes, this is going to be something that you don't regret. I mean, there's far too much pain that I see in adult children who, obviously, they didn't expect that their parent would die so quickly. We don't know what to expect, so we have to really treasure each day, I think.
I love that. And I mean, this is from someone who has worked in end of life care in a hospice setting. And so I know that you've spoken with a lot of people who have a very real fear. Coronavirus, of course, is a different type of fear than maybe you would have dealt with in your work setting, but fear is fear, guys.
A number of adult children have expressed how they can't keep their parents home. Their aging parents don't want to stay home. And, my thought to that is, as somebody gets older, and if you think about the way our society views older adults, I don't know how afraid older people are of dying any more than like everyday life. There are plenty of older people who say they want to die, who they don't see any, reason for living any longer. So I'm not speaking for everybody, but I don't know how scary it is for them, how fearful they are of dying tomorrow. And I think for us, the way that we can talk to our parents is say, I want you here, Mom. And we have to convey that love to them. Because if we just say, like, you need to stay home because, this is dangerous, that is completely different than when you express that you love them and you want them around. Like, I want you around longer, Mom. So I would just give that piece of advice for those who are struggling with keeping their parents home.
That is fantastic advice. Very, very timely. And I think we can use that lesson in the bulk of our communication with our loved ones, no matter their age. I want you to plug the book one more time because you've given us so much value. I want you to take a selfish minute and plug your book. That way people can, I'll put the links in the show notes depending on where they're listening. They can either click details or swipe up, but tell us about The Value of Wrinkles before we go into rapid fire.
So the book is called The Value of Wrinkles. The subtitle is A Young Perspective on How Loving the Old Will Change Your Life. And so this is probably one of the only, if not the only book written by a younger person, and I say under 40, about old age. And I would say I include a lot of stories in there, but this is a book that I would give to like my dearest friends if they asked me how they can care for their aging parent or grandparent. These are all the things that I would, whenever people come to ask me questions on how they can help their grandparent or somebody who's in the hospital, I wish I could have given this book to them because it's not just about like a one-time thing. There's so many things we can do now just to improve the quality of life for an older person and improve our own lives too as we go about caring for them. So I highly encourage you to read it because there's a reason why I wrote it. If I thought I could wait a couple of years, I would have. I have 3 young kids and I felt the urgency to write this with 3 young kids staying up late hours in the night because this is an important message for everybody to read about. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Are you ready to rapid fire with me? This is unrelated to aging or the health crisis or anything else. Tell me, actually, maybe this is related to aging. What is your favorite thing to gift? Like a physical gift that you could Amazon, I'm using that as a verb, or send to a aging family member?
At this point, I would just send them my book, honestly.
I like that. I like that. How about a non-physical? Like what is something that doesn't cost any money that we could gift an aging loved one or family member?
A visit, a conversation, calling them.
Awesome. I mean, you guys can't see Bella's. We're on Zoom right now, so I can see her, and she's looking at me like, "Hey, you big dummy, call your grandparents." That is the theme to this episode. I am so playing with you, and I like seeing you laugh. Tell me, finally, what would your best advice be for your 25-year-old self?
Well, I would say that God's plan is best. So trust him with it. Because when I was 25, I didn't know what God was going to do with my life 10 years later. So
awesome. I think that is great at any season of life. It is so wonderful to have a published author, a mom, a fitness enthusiast, and a sister in Christ. We love your work. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us about the value of wrinkles, as well as your advice for this very, very timely health crisis that we have going on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Susie. It was so, so fun.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Isabel Tom is the author of The Value of Wrinkles, and I know my favorite part of that show was what she said about grandchildren, how they bless without baggage. Did you hear that? Did you hear her when she said, pick up the phone and call your grandma, call your grandpa? I challenge everyone listening to do this. Do it today. Thank you, Isabel, for coming on. I'm going to link The Value of Wrinkles in the show notes. You can either click details or swipe up. You've got to check it out. It will change the game on how you view these relationships and connect with your loved ones. Until I get into your earpiece again, remember, for while bodily training is of some value, godliness is a value in every way, as it holds promise for the present life and also for the life to come. That's from 1 Timothy 4:8, and this has been the Run Lift Mom podcast. All right, I've got Arjun Rai here. He is the founder of Hello Woofie. Arjun, tell me, how can moms with social media passion projects or side jobs be more present with Hello Woofie?
It's a great question. Imagine having a nanny that works with you 24/7. Heck, forget one nanny. Having a dozen nannies working for you 24/7, giving you the right recommendations, when to give them, when to feed your kids, what to feed them, how to feed them, when to take them to school, what level of education they should be, they should be receiving, whether in mathematics and education. Think of that nanny or team of nannies working for you 24/7, helping you with your social media. What words do well, what emojis do well, what images will do well with what you've typed in. Heck, when you upload an image, it automatically translates the words in the image and automatically types a post for you. It even gives you recommendations for hashtags based on what is in the image. There's so much technology, there's so much smart technology in the product itself. We just want to give every small business owner, every mom, the fighting chance to compete with unlimited marketing budgets of the world. And so if you want to try it, go to hellowolfie.com. But it's that nanny. It's a team of nannies working with you 24/7.
Hey, Run Lift Mom listeners, you know I'm the mom of 4 kids under age 5, and therefore I am always looking for ways to work smart, not hard. Anchor is the smartest way to make a podcast. Let me tell you why. First of all, there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, but Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so then it can be heard on places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and a whole lot more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It is quite literally everything you need all in one place. And y'all, it's free. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You guys, I'm thrilled to announce a new partner on Run Lift Mom, and that is Audible. I've been an Audible member for over 10 years, and my favorite part, hands down, it's the gift of time. I use the free app to take notes as I'm doing my long run and I hear something fantastic, and you are going to love it. If you want to try Audible free, visit audibletrial.com/runliftmom. That's RUNLIFTMOM. Again, for a free trial, visit audibletrial.com/runliftmom. Hey, Run Lift Mom listeners, if you are here for business or entrepreneur type topics, I want to let you know I have a new show. It's called Serve Then Sell, and it's available on 10 different channels, including Google, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. The idea here is not to just lump in the business topics with running, lifting, and momming. I want to create more of a separation. I hope you will come hang out with me over there. Again, the name of the show is called Serve Then Sell. Enter that into any search box and you're going to see it come right up. We'll be running, lifting, and momming over here. I hope you'll still hang out. Check in over there if it will be a blessing for you. Thank you for listening to the Run Lift Mom podcast. This began as a passion project in February 2019, and now, you guys, it is legit my favorite thing to do each week. Record with the guests that come on Run Lift Mom, and then share their knowledge and expertise with you. I love this. I have done a lot of things right with this show. The thing that I've done wrong, I haven't asked you to rate, review, and subscribe enough. You guys, this is how other people find the show. So please do me a solid, rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you for being a listener of Run Lift Mom.